Hi everyone, so I'm going to go through your Easter revision work now. The first video is going to be the 10 short questions and also the ABQ that you had to do. So I'm going to go through each of the answers with you in terms of what you should have said to get the full marks and any other kind of information or tips or points along the way as well. So I'll start with question number 1, and it was a assurance question. It was a letter and explanation question. So in other words, on the left hand side you got your key terms, and then on the right hand side you got your definitions or explanations, and you had to match them up. You'll notice that the insurance principles, subrogation, utmost good faith, indemnity and contribution are listed, and also average clause as well. So you can see the letters there that match up to these key terms. Now it's obvious as well that the letter B, the insured person must gain from the item's existence and suffer financially from its loss, was the odd one out in this scenario, and that would be the missing insurance principle, which would be insurable interest. So that one should have been fairly okay for any higher level Leaving Cert student. So I'll quickly move on to question number 2 now, and it's to do with fixed and variable costs in relation to break-even analysis. So fixed costs, they're the ones that remain the same, so no matter how much you produce or use something, it will always be the same amount. An example there, like rent or loan payments or insurance, in other words, it is the same amount every single payment. It's not going to change. So if you're renting a premises, for example, if you used it 1 day in the month, if you used it for 31 days in the month, it's going to be the same amount of money regardless. So this would be a fixed cost for a business. Whereas the variable costs, well, they fluctuate or they change directly with the level of output. In other words, maybe the more you produce or the more you make, the higher or lower it will be. Very topical, obviously, at the moment with what's going on in the world, that a lot of variable costs for businesses will be down. So wages, for example, they won't be paying as much wages. The costs of raw materials to build or make things, or if businesses are closed down, they won't have those raw materials expenses, etc. So again, just the differences between fixed and variable costs. You have to know the definitions of each and an example of something that would go into those categories as well. So question number 3 was next. So these are your abbreviation questions. So ABQ, Irish Business and Employers Confederation, and that would be an example of an interest group from Unit 1, Chapter 1. And they're very topical in the news as well, because they're representing the business's point of view with regards to, you know, being closed down during COVID-19 and all that type of stuff. So you may have heard them an awful lot in the news at the moment. The WRC, the Workplace Relations Commission, we would look at that in Unit 1, Chapter 3 with the industrial relations issues and employment laws and everything like that, so that's topical there too. FDI, Foreign Direct Investment, they're foreign companies coming into countries like Ireland, setting up here. What attracts them to Ireland is our low corporation tax of 12.5%. CPI is Consumer Price Index. It's the measurement of inflation, which we would have just recently looked at in Unit 6. And World Trade Organization, and that's actually something from Unit 7. They regulate international trade between nations. So that's what the World Trade Organization does. It kind of regulates trade. That's a Unit 7 topic we haven't looked at just yet. Okay, so question number 4 now is next. So question number 4, Ireland's rate of corporation tax, we've just said that, is 12.5%. That's the tax on companies' profits. It's one of the reasons why businesses set up in Ireland. So that's the tertiary sector. We kind of looked at quite recently, service sectors coming to Ireland, setting up here. You know, the multinational companies, etc., because we have a low corporation tax in comparison with the rest of the world. Tax on profits made on the sale of assets is called capital gains tax. Remember, capital acquisitions tax is inheritance and gifts and things like that. But capital gains tax is when you sell something that you own, like a house or something like that. If you're selling it, you have to pay capital gains tax on it. VAT is actually an indirect tax. Direct taxes are taxes on income, and indirect tax are taxes on expenditure. A tax is in which tax rate increases, the taxable amount increasing is called progressive tax. So progressive basically means the more you earn, the more you pay. So typical progressive tax will be something like PAYE, because you got your different rates. So the more you earn, you pay the standard rate or the higher rate. Whereas regressive tax means the tax is the same for everybody. So if you go to SuperValue, for example, and buy a chicken roll and it costs €4, it costs you €4, but it also costs me €4. I would have more disposable income than you would, because obviously having a full-time job. So basically what that means is that because the tax is the same for all people regardless of income levels, it means it leaves people who with less money less well off, essentially. So progressive taxes The more you earn, the more you pay. Regressive taxes actually leave you with less money because it is the same tax for all. VAT is a typical example of that. So tax credits then, they reduce the amount of income tax, and we had a number of tax credits from looking at the tax chapter in Unit 4. Right, question 5. 2 benefits of external or looking outside the business recruitment for a business. So there's a number of them there. We would have looked at these in our human resource management chapter in Unit 4. The best candidate for the job can be recruited. You can have a wider pool of candidates as well, not just the people inside. So, you know, you can have a number of people from outside the business applying. They may be able to bring fresh ideas, new ways of doing things, new production processes. They're maybe more open to change. Maybe they've worked with TQM before or something like that, maybe to bring this into the business. A wide range experience from previous employment, better skill set. They're a higher caliber applicant than what you already have, perhaps. They have no existing relationships in the business, so that conflict or tension that may be, you know, the internal jealousy that may exist between certain staff members who one person got it over another, that will be eradicated in that instance. So any 2 of those, state and explain. Outline 2 methods of extending a product life cycle. We will look at a number of these. This is marketing. So extending a product life cycle. So the obvious ones we kind of had were, you know, the Coca-Cola had to kind of incorporate the sugar tax into their products and services, but wanted to maintain the same sales. So they brought out the new size to combat that. So what they did is there in the first point, they updated their product, or some products as well. They introduced new features like new flavors and things like that. So improving, updating products. You can change the design. We mentioned in class about cars bringing in Bluetooth facilities recently enough as well, you know, in the models of the cars. There's lots and lots of different ones really. You can see them there. You only needed two for your statement, and you had your explanations then as well, and then your example will be at the end. We had price strategies as well. So what the marketing scheme here has gone into the different marketing mix elements for you. The price strategies we would have done in class were like offering loyalty cards for people, you know, or like the smoothie place in Banchestown used to give kind of coupon cards, and every time you bought one they punched it, and then when you got your 8th smoothie you got a free smoothie there. You could change the design, you know, as we mentioned, the product, as we mentioned, loyalty cards, give discounts. You know, you could sell online. That could be a new way of promoting something. There's lots and lots of different ones there, so just pick the best 2 that suit you. And then here are some of the examples which I've already discussed, ones we've talked about, but there is more there as well. So the way you would answer that is you give your statement and your explanation for 2 points, and then what you do is you'd have an example underneath of a product that has been able to update or extend the product life cycle. Question 7, and this is international trade. So the way to kind of do this, or what to know, is you have to know what an import is first and foremost. And an import is anything that we bring into a country that causes money to go out, and an export is anything we sell to another country that causes money to come in. So it's always better to have more exports than imports. So what a country actually does is they always say exports minus imports. So exports, in the question here, if you know it's exports minus imports, you didn't know what the missing B was, but you knew the answer was a 75 surplus. So you have to work backwards there. 200 minus 75 gave you 125 billion in the visible imports. And then for A, so moving on the lines there rather than the letters, apologies, but for A, you knew that something minus 170 gave you a 20 deficit. So something minus 170 equals minus 20. So again, basic maths, kind of working backwards. That's where your 150 comes from. And on the bottom line there, you have got your 180 minus 150 is 30. And that should have the word surplus beside it as well. The market seems to have left that out, but you will be expected to have that as part of your answer. Now, the term balance of payments is the difference between your total exports, in other words, all the exports, whether it's visible and invisible, because visible exports are goods, tangible because you can touch them, and invisible exports are services, they're non-tangible because you can't touch them. So a visible export would be something like a car, fruit, anything you can hold in your hand essentially. And an invisible export would be maybe like an Irish teacher, you know, providing the service of teaching a class. You can't touch that, so that's a service. So visible and invisible trade is kind of outlined there. So the difference between total imports and total exports, you always want to have more exports than imports. Now, the next question here was a true or false question. So inflation refers to the decrease in the cost of living. Well, no, it's not. It's the increase, so that's false. The role of IDA Ireland is to attract foreign direct investment into Ireland. That, of course, is true. High rates stimulate business expansion. High interest rates, they don't. High interest rates would mean that cost of borrowing has gone up. You want borrowing to be low, so it encourages more borrowing of money. So high interest rates would not stimulate business expansion and have the opposite effect, so that's false. Indigenous firms are foreign-owned firms located in Ireland. That is false. Indigenous firms are Irish firms operating in Ireland, like O'Brien's Chocolate, for example. And the factors of production refer to resources required for the generation of goods and services. That is true. The factors of production, which we've recently done, are land, labour, capital and enterprise. Now, question 9 is a Unit 2 question. So you have to outline 2 methods of promoting entrepreneurship. There's loads of them there. We would have seen these types of things lots and lots of times. You know, our culture, for example, look at the second one here, a culture where it's okay to make mistakes, okay? You know, the third one there, a resource provider, so you give funding to your employees, you give time to your employees, you know, to make, to try and come up with ideas and stuff like that. The empowerment is the first point there, giving rewards for effort, adopting teamwork strategies, training programs, lots and lots of stuff we kind of would have covered even in the management change topic in Unit 4. You know, they're very relevant here as well. So we would have seen that question a lot of times before. And the last short question, very much on Unit 6, which we've just kind of more or less completed. I know we have 1 chapter to go. Explain the term primary sector. So this is the category of industry based on the natural resources of a country, like agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, etc., energy, etc. You know, the definitions that we have in class is absolutely fine. So you got 4 marks for that. And part B, you have to outline any 2 trends. Now, we have talked about like the beef industry, the problems they're having right now in 2020 with regards to the fact that businesses like McDonald's and supermarkets are no longer looking for you know, beef from farmers in Ireland because they obviously have closed down their stores. That is a hugely topical example of the primary sector. You know, the demand for beef isn't as high as it was. You know, there's other things like the quotas on the fish, the expansion of wind energy and solar power. We talked about that in class. So solar solar panels in houses are now more evident. There's lots and lots of examples for them there anyway in that particular marking scheme. So guys, there is the solutions to the short questions. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move on to the ABQ. Spend a couple of minutes on that. So if I just scroll down here a little bit, and your ABQ here was on this business called Thought Zone, and hopefully you got on okay with it. So I'm just going to keep going. So using examples from the above text for enterprising characteristics or skills shown by Tracy. Now, guys, this is a question we have done lots and lots of times on the board in class. You have multiple examples of this. Remember to state, explain, example. You can see the marking scheme there. State 2 marks, expand 2 marks, relevant link 1 mark. So any 4 of the huge number of ones we've put up on the board that are relevant to this particular answer, you state your skill or characteristic, you explain that skill or characteristic, and then you link it to the text. So in this particular answer, you've got risk taker, risk manager, motivated or determined, they're proactive, future focused, customer focused, team player, cooperative, accessible, open-minded, flexible. There are so many there, and the marking scheme itself even allowed for other appropriate answers. So what that means is that that list is not exhaustive. There's lots and lots of different examples that you could have said, look, as long as you've stated correctly, you have explained correctly, and have been able to give a link to the answer, you know you have got your 20 marks. Now, part B. So this is looking at total quality management. So this was, again, Unit 4. It was managing change. And what you're asked to do in this particular question is to give 3 points at 10 marks each. So state was 2 marks, expand 6. In other words, what they're looking for is 2 3-mark well-explained points to support your answer. Now, if we go through the marketing scheme here. In class, we have actually in our notes, and if you use these points, that's absolutely fine. You're talking about increasing sales, you're talking about job satisfaction for the workers, you're talking about improving quality in the products and services, you're talking about the legal requirements for the Sale of Goods and Supply Services Act 1980, the fact that you won't have to be taken to court over product service. All these types of things are perfectly applicable here for this particular marketing scheme as well. In fact, if you think about customer focus for a second, that is basically saying it's a way in which you get your customers to return to your store, which obviously increases the sales. So your statement, your explanation, 2 clear points, full sentences. I would even suggest that the sentences that they've given there, beside customer focus, providing services with the customers, viewing the customer as the most important person in the business, there needs to be more meat on those particular answers. So you're looking at 2, 3, maybe 4 sentences, 2 sentences per point, really kind of bulking up that answer and then giving your appropriate link to the text as well. Employee empowerment and teamwork, you can nearly group together in terms of job satisfaction for your workers. They really want to be there, they're more motivated. You can link to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that job satisfaction really going up, and obviously relating that to kind of the output level of the business then as well. Continuous improvement, what I would do there is I would link that back to that improved quality, that 0 defects approach. Less products are being returned, as part of your overall strategy, which means that the business can continuously improve and get better. They're not having to look back, they can always look forward, be that future focused business, be that market leader that it possibly wants to be. Other acceptable answers, as I said, you could look at the Sale of Goods and Supply Service Act 1980 as part of the legal requirements in producing goods and services. So again, just linking this answer back, statement, 2 marks. 2 well explained points is 3 marks and 3 marks, and then your relevant link is 2 marks. And you can see lots of prompts there to kind of support your answer then as well. And the third part, C, in this particular question was the management skills. Again, notice they don't say leadership, motivation and communication. You are expected to know them. If it was management activities, it would be planning, organising and controlling. So again, look at the marketing scheme. State, 2 marks. Explanation, 5 marks. Relevant link, 2 marks. Evaluation, 1 mark. So there was an evaluation giving an informed opinion in this particular answer. So again, I would go with the same kind of logic of 2 well explained points to support it. Now, we have done a number of the management skills and management activity questions as practice questions in classes. Just use those templates to support your answers, guys. All you're really doing here is tying it into a different type of business and linking it differently as well. So the first one was leadership. By saying leadership alone, you got 2 marks straight away. Again, 2 well explained points on leadership. You're talking about key terms, maybe like delegation there as part of leadership. What is leadership? Direct ability to direct people by setting an example and influencing others for the benefit of a business. Good, strong leadership gets the best out of their staff, so you want to be a democratic or laissez-faire style there, that type of stuff. So again, you might touch on your leadership styles, your definition of leadership as part of delegation, how it would improve an overall business, and then there is your link there. Look, Anne has been instrumental in developing a great team approach amongst the staff. There's a good bond between the employees as the workload is shared evenly. Communication actually is the second one they've given here. So transfer of information between people in the organisation. You want to talk about maybe the benefit of good communication. People know exactly what they're doing in a business. People feel comfortable sharing ideas, or ideas are shared in a business. Open channels of communication, that type of stuff. And then you got your links here again. So 2 well explained points needed there. And motivation, the last one there. Again, what is motivation? The ability to create an environment where employees are willing to work hard and contribute the best of their ability for the benefit of the business. You got your theories there. You got Maslow and McGregor. You could touch, on how that kind of influencer helps a business. Like the motivation will reward staff, etc., etc. Again, link it to the text, and then evaluation. So for each of the 3 leadership, motivation, communication, you have to give a 1 mark evaluation, so maybe 2 sentences on how each of those are important for a business. So leadership gives employees a direction on where to go, and someone is there to take them. And I feel that this will only benefit businesses in the future. It's important for motivation to recognize that your workers have different needs, and it is important for management to recognize this in terms of trying to get the most out of your workers. For communication, you might say something like, by shared communication in a business, people know exactly where they are, exactly where they need to be, are comfortable looking for help or guidance, which can only benefit a business moving forward. So you've got your different evaluations that you can tie in then to your answer as well. So guys, they were the short questions and the ABQ. I will have another video for you on how to answer each of the long questions.